I'm delighted to be joined on KUMBTV once again by Sue Watson from the West Ham Utd Independent Supporters Association. Sue, good to talk to you once again. It's been a very busy week for you and your team. On Thursday, you were present at a meeting with the club, which is something I wanted to discuss with you. But before we do that, earlier this week, West Ham United released their season ticket renewal plans for the forthcoming season. Now, some might say that the club's season ticket renewal policy doesn't appear to be so different from some other clubs in the Premier League. So my initial question is, why have the fans been so critical?
One of the issues and a major talking point at the meeting you've alluded to was around how the club are going to facilitate those that are shielding, those that are over 65, the more vulnerable, those that for financial reasons maybe have been affected by coronavirus, therefore may be more hesitant to come to matches or not actually able to come to matches. So both myself and the Hammers United rep, we spoke at length, taking various aspects of that. Now, when this came out, there was no option 3, so it could be seen that those groups that we talked about, so some of them being people who've supported the club 50 years plus, just were not considered. And just to kind of underline and underscore that point, the Football Supporters Association, that were also at this meeting, had put forward a proposal that is partly option 3, which would have been more supportive of people in that situation. Some clubs haven't actually put out information for the season ticket renewals yet. They're actually still talking to their independent supporter groups. So that's just another kind of side aspect of the whole situation.
As you mentioned there, you were at a meeting with the club last week with various other representatives of fan groups, etc. Mm-hmm. And we understand that, again, as you pointed out there, a third option to allow fans to defer purchasing a season ticket for next season was added on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. What's your understanding of the process behind that and why that wasn't in the initial release on Monday?
Well, messaging and communications is something that I think needs to be looked at more widely by the club. That was a point that was made at that particular meeting. In my day-to-day job, part of the strategic planning needs to be, you think several steps ahead, you look at various options. I mean, this is not rocket science stuff. You look at scenario A, B, C maybe, and therefore backtrack. What do you need to do and when do you need to do it in a timely fashion? Now, I understand that that's not always possible. Mm-hmm. I think everybody understands with coronavirus, there have been a lot of knock-on implications, and potentially things could change, as we've seen with overseas travel, very, very rapidly. So I'll park that bit. However, what I would question is the message and messaging, the timeliness of the message and messaging. So I couldn't quite work out why option 3 wasn't part of that, because that to me would have made logical sense, option 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And there needed to be, I think that has been amended now, when you sign in online to renew, that you could choose option 1, option 2 or option 3. I believe it has been amended because one of our members was saying, well, they tried to renew on the phone and that because they want option 3 and they weren't allowed to. But supporter services apparently are going to put that option online. But again, it's almost like not quite sure why that bit wasn't sorted, because that is within the club's control. Coronavirus isn't, but that little bit of enabling a supporter to make his or her purchase is in the club's control.
Okay.
So hopefully that has been sorted out now.
Mm-hmm. Let's be clear on this. Option 3, which has now been added, was one of the suggestions mooted at the meeting last week.
Very, very clearly. Very clearly. In fact, an employee of the club discussed that as a possibility. Another employee of the club that was at the meeting was saying, yes, that seems to be like a good option. We need to give that serious consideration. Mm-hmm. Both WHUISA and HU sort of were saying, well, that seems to be a bit more supportive, needs to be given serious consideration. And then obviously the FSA representative, he was saying, as you've seen in our statement, that he was saying it's almost like a fallow year type concept. So this was most definitely discussed at the meeting. However, that kind of gets to the nub of the online and the tussle almost around what consultation and fan engagement actually is, and what in reality that looks like.
Okay. Do you think that all the resulting concern and negativity that we've seen in the last 24 to 48 hours could therefore have been avoided if they'd taken your advice in the first place?
Yeah. Yes.
Simple as that.
Yeah, as simple as that. What I will say though is it was HU and WHUISA. We were both, and the Football Supporters Association. So 3 independent groups, bodies, reps. This is what we were saying. I mean, I think in my mind, okay, season ticket renewal should be thought about and discussed January, February time. Now, I accept that coronavirus meant everything was different. We've all lived a different life, and we will live a different life, I suspect, for a good 2 years, maybe until vaccines are all up and running, whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they shouldn't have thought, like I said, strategically about option A, option B, option C. What would that mean when we need to be messaging our supporters? What could that look like? And HU and us could have been part of that. We could have been part of that. And all we want is to get things right for supporters more widely. Supporters are the club. Supporters are the lifeblood of any club. Owners, custodians is a word I've heard used.
Yeah.
That is what they are.
Okay.
And I just wonder, Graham, if one of the issues potentially is business versus the emotional buy-in and tie that supporters have to our club. It's our club.
Yeah.
There's the tension there, potentially, I would suggest.
Even though this third option has been added now, I've seen it likened in some places to a modern day bond scheme, with supporters having to pay in advance just to have the opportunity to purchase a season ticket 12 months from now. What's your view on that? Would you agree with that, or do you think that's a little bit far-fetched?
Well, my understanding is once capacity hits 70%, the expectation, that's my understanding, is that the supporter will complete the purchase. I think that is something that at the next meeting, which I'm chasing the club to set a date for, I think we need to agree a lot more of the nitty-gritty around that, because we've been contacted with a couple of questions linked to option 3, linked to a few issues that aren't that clear. Again, I'm getting back to messaging and communications, but I think you're right. There are a couple of things that I think the club needs to be a lot clearer on. For example, in their email they sent to supporters, they said more details to follow. Okay, well, that's fair enough. Maybe they're still absorbing guidance, I don't know. But that's the sort of thing that we will be pushing the club on.
Okay. Something else I've seen said is that the club's renewal policy effectively equates to an interest-free loan from the supporters, many of whom, as we know, are suffering financial hardship and difficulty at present, to 2 billionaires. Do you think that's a fair and accurate representation?
I can see why it's been said. I know there's a lot tied up in property, but they are, I mean, they what, the 18th or 19th or something like that richest club in Europe.
Yeah.
That's no secret. I can see that that's why that would be said. I think that's a fair comment to make.
Okay.
I think a little bit more goodwill from the club is needed. And again, like I said, they will be pushed hard on that. The door is beginning to open, potentially. There are some positive signs. We're working with Hammers United. We talk a lot together and do sort of some planning together around a few things, obviously to do with joint issues like this sort of thing. And we will keep pushing.
Okay, good stuff. We understand that no more than 40% of capacity will be allowed at football stadiums when the new season begins in September, with some reports suggesting those figures may be as low as 20%. Do you think in those circumstances it's viable to allow fans to return at all? Or do you think we should just defer it until it's completely safe?
Personal view, football, I think sport generally is nothing without supporters. So I follow cricket a lot as well. And I watched some of the cricket games and I thought, I cannot abide this piped in sound, but that's just my personal opinion. Some people like it, I don't. I don't think we being WHUISA should say to a group of supporters, if they choose to go in and they are successful in the ballot, I don't think we have the right to say you're not allowed to go until everybody's allowed back in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's fair. My understanding is supporters won't be going back in until October, potentially anyway.
Yeah.
So the season starts at the 12th of September, and then the Minister, Oliver Dowden, was talking about October possibly. But then again, Boris Johnson's on the news now saying that we could be 2 weeks off another wave, a second spike. So, like I said, strategically, they have to have plans A, B, and C. I would like to think that they're thinking, right, well, if we're opening in October, potentially this is what it could be. But if we're not, then this is what else. I mean, obviously, then we're into the refund arena again.
Excellent. Sue Watson from the West Ham United Independent Supporters Association. Thank you once again for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you.